I think the whole society should be included. The whole society should be included into discussion about technology.
Sorry.
That's okay. Society should be included in the discussion and the ethics about technology and smart cities. So that's why we're here.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Elke. And behind the laptop is Richard. Richard, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Richard Bijlaert, a techno-broker, and I'm one of the industrial partners of the Innovation Space Smart City program. And I'll be doing together with Frank of Innovation Origins TV, I'm doing the technology and the technique today at this event. So thanks very much for joining.
Thank you. This series is the result of the Smart City Innovation Space project. In this project, the consortium of Eindhoven University of Technology, Innovation Space and Innovation Lab, Brainport Smart District, Omnis Internetbureau, Techno-Broker, and the student teams, Team CASA and Virtue, have the ambition to contribute to a smart city learning community. As a university program, Smart City Innovation Space focuses on students, mainly because many of them will become the architect of the future smart cities. The current generation of students seem to be very idealistic and progressive. They are already very good at realizing their idea, which results in many startups. By bringing in expertise and real-world challenges from companies and governments, Smart City Innovation Space aims to accelerate the learning curve so that students are ready to tackle the problems of the real world once they leave university. Currently, many students are very enthusiastic about the Smart City theme. Smart City Innovation Space aims by bringing in, more companies and government also by these seminars. So we invite speakers from all fields of expertise from the smart city landscape. In this Smart City series, we'll highlight themes like healthcare, energy, food, and transport. Previously, we've discussed the ethical framework titled Who Lives in Smart Cities? This episode can be watched on IOTV. And now we continue with the webinar about the mobility and transportation network called What Moves Smart Cities? Present-day mobility is a lifeblood of our society, bringing people and goods from A to B. But how should future transportation networks look like? Will society move faster, so transportation networks need to expand rapidly? How can we accomplish less accidents, network, and virtually no pollution? How can we solve all the traffic jams? Will there be transport in the future? Or will there just be our holograms visiting each other? Or maybe the Star Trek quote, "Beam me up," will become a normal part of our life. But today, we are going to discuss the midterm future development of transportation and mobility, where IA technologies are applied and mobility as a service and last mile solutions are the new keywords in the future smart cities.
So we find it really important to include everyone in this conversation. Even if you are not an expert in the topic, it's really important to ask relevant questions. So this is a live stream and everyone can communicate in the chat. If you have something to say, if you have something to ask, please do that and then we will come back to you as soon as possible. We also have, after 4 of the speakers had get the story out, we also they also participated in the discussion and also with you guys. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. During the next 1.5 hours, 4 renowned specialists will briefly introduce their vision on the future mobility and transportation networks in a smart city environment. And after this introduction, there will be a panel discussion, and as Elke mentioned, you can take part in this discussion and ask your questions. And now I would like to direct to the first speaker, which will shine her light on the smart city landscape. I'm very happy to announce her, because with her company, Firm of the Future, She has a very well-developed vision on what our future world could look like in 2050. Next to that, she's an author and an expert in the field of biomimicry and business. Here is Els Martijn, CEO of Firm of the Future, partner at Biomimicry and Business. Els, take it away.
Thank you very much. Pumping. The one is the economical side, and the other one is how we live and work together. And what the real aspect about sustainability is changing that together. Not only the aspect of mobility, but taking an integral aspect of sustainability. And if you do that right, the whole world looks different. But in the meantime, it's also a challenge, the transition of all four aspects of self-production, globalization, but also living and working. How can we move that in a way that it doesn't stop the one or the other? And that's how we call it in climate heart, because the heart needs to be a rhythm, there needs to be a movement. And that's exactly what we are about to learn also from sustainability, our vision, because we need to do it all together. And if you look to the mobility, we have a small vlog. I hope it works. It's in Dutch, but with the subscription from English. So it's 2 minutes, and you see our vision on the screen. Oh. There should be some sound, but.
Maar ik zie nergens, ik zie alleen maar een step staan. Vraag me wel af waar die... Hey, welkom bij Dennis Mobility Experience.
We are experiencing ourselves with the new ways of the last mile transport means. We have them, we own them in our office. And we have an environment surrounding with the office. It's privately owned, so we can still use them and let people experience how it works. It's a pity that there is no sound. Especially the one-wheeler. Did somebody try that already, the one-wheeler? No? It's like a motorbike. Yeah, you did it? It's not that easy. it took me 3 days to learn to stand only on it. And the one-wheeler in itself is going 45 kilometers an hour. So you can go on the streets and move with it. But you need to learn to drive it like a motorbike. It's not as easy as a car. The car, we drive in Teslas, sorry, but it's an American car, but it is autonomous, and we use it also like that. Dare to try things that are not allowed yet, because we want to move governmental bodies to really allow those kind of mobilities. In itself, we also trying to learn what works and what doesn't work. Because the one-wheeler everybody likes, but it doesn't work that well because you really need to practice. You also have the hoverboard. You know, the snowboard? Yeah, that's an easy one to move. But on the other hand, it's not safe because you're standing in the wrong way. So at the end, our conclusion was that more or less a two-wheeler, the Segway, is the most easy one to learn, and the step. We all know the step in every city around the world is allowed, except in the Netherlands. But the step in itself is quite easy to use. And it's also going 20 kilometers an hour. So it's quite speedy, and it is a good way to move. The only disadvantage of the step is that you need to have your hands on the steering wheel, while the Segway, you can just stand and you have your hands free. It's much easier to move, much easier to learn, and it's more safe if we allow it to be on the roads. I think you can see later on also the movie. Let's move on to the next sheet, because if you're going back to the forest and to the water pool where all the animals come and drink, you see a logic of how the movements are. There are some simple roads and the animals cross each other. Of course, if they're not going to be eaten, because then they hide. But there's a single way. And that's our vision also on the future. It's a single way. You don't need right and left. If you have autonomous vehicles, you move yourself in the right direction. The city that we believe will be the city of the future will be with a square in the middle and a lob structure with the area outside. Yeah, it's going back in the air. Here you see a nice movie of how we move on the last mile. We do that currently already. We have our offices in Oosterbeek, nearby Arnhem, and this is how we do our shoppings. We move on those simple vehicles, the two-wheeler, the one-wheeler, the step. We go into the city, take our groceries, and go back to the office. You don't hear it, but there is no sound. It's silent movements, and it is easy to ride. Everybody is turning to you if you drive like this, but this is, in our view, the mobility of the future for the last mile. It's easy to ride. No space needed, not a lot of parking space, and imagine on top of that shared economy. So you put it aside, it's not that expensive. You go into
Thank you, Els. Thank you for painting such a clear picture.
Thank you. So I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, which is Marien ten Houten. He is not only the founder of Innovation Origins, but also the founder of Amber. And Amber is a company that offers on-demand mobility via fully electric cars. And today I'll tell you more about his company and about how shareable electric cars can reduce crowding on the road. So the stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Somebody is now rushing to get my slides on.
Yep.
Hopefully now some magic happens. I'll just start talking. The slides will be there soon. Amber is in use a very simple service. So when you become a member of Amber, you get an app, and you use that app to make a reservation, use that app to locate the car, use that app to get into the car, and then you can move. Oh. Yes.
Screen.
Oh. So at the front end, it's not very different from a lot of other car sharing services. Next slide, please. This is the app. Oh, quite simple. Next slide, please. There are a few things that really do make us different. We start out as a business-to-business car sharing service. The whole idea is that people can choose which modality they use to go to work. And then when they have an appointment at work, they can also choose which modality to use. Nowadays, people have a car, have an appointment during the day, so they use the car to go to work. So you see people going from the center of Amsterdam to the Zuidas, at the outskirts of Amsterdam, by car, which takes them an hour for a very short distance, because they need that car later during the day. This is stupid. It costs time, it costs space. So in our service, they go by bike or by public transport to their place of work, and then during the day, when they need to visit the client, they just pick up one of our cars from the parking garage and use that. This worked perfectly, and we grew quite fast with this. And then beginning this year, something happened, and this market collapsed because people started working from home and were not visiting clients. All things got digital. We see big chances in that, also in the business-to-business market for the future. But of course, as a startup, we pivoted and we went after the consumer market. But we didn't want to be as all other companies. So we introduced a valet service, especially for here in Eindhoven. Why don't people use shared cars? Because they don't want to locate a car, not being sure where it is. They want to be sure of having a car when they need it. So we introduce that. If you make a reservation, we will bring a car to you at the time you need it. So you use the app, you say, I need a car at that moment, and it will be in front of your house. Just like your own car, but better, because if it breaks down, no problem, you get another car. We use one fleet between all customers, business to business and consumers, because our business model is in utilization of the cars. The more they drive, the more money you make. And we guarantee mobility, so if you have a reservation, you will have a car. And we focus on intercity traffic. Like the previous speaker, the last mile within the city, we believe in bikes, new modes of transport, but not using a car to go 2 or 3 kilometers within a city. That's stupid, that's not fast, that's not economical. But if you want to go to another city, often the car is the best choice. In the Netherlands, 80% of all kilometers is done by car, and there's a reason for it. Behind this is an AI platform. So we demand, we place the cars there where the demand will be before those reservations are made. So this is used to distribute the cars and up the usage of the cars. We do this with fleet operators. Just people who drive the car to the right spot and then usually take a bike to get to the next car. We distribute them between hubs. For the business-to-business model, we have hubs at campuses, big office parks, etc. We have one here at the University of Eindhoven. And now for the consumers, we have service areas. So the whole city of Eindhoven is one service area. You can have your car delivered anywhere in Eindhoven. You can drop off the car anywhere in Eindhoven. This is a heat map how Amber is used to show that's really intercity transport. So you see big blobs for Amsterdam, Utrecht, Eindhoven, where a lot of our consumers are. But you see the cars are used to go to Brussels, to Germany, anywhere. We don't focus on the shopping trip. They're used for that as well, but the main focus is on long distance. We don't believe we are the end solution for everything. If you want a smart city, you want smart choices for mobility. And what research shows is that if you pay for mobility by use, people choose wiser. If you own a car, you will use that car because you already paid for it. If you pay by a kilometer or pay by the hour, then you choose if you are going to use the train or a bike or a car, because the costs are the real cost you make to society and to yourself, and not anymore the cost you have paid in the past for buying this car. So we really like to integrate with other mobility solutions and make sure people choose the mobility they need at that moment. We are not just renting out cars, we really want to change things. So we have a focus on innovation. We do part of our own development at the whole artificial intelligence system, which does the planning, but also at the front end of the car. So I've experimented autonomous cars to reposition, and we have a smart film about, a short film about that. I hope. Yes. So we used a few Ambers to experiment with platooning. The whole idea was if you need to move a lot of cars, now if you need to want to move 3 cars, you need 3 drivers, which is more people. And we experimented with 1 car in front, driven by a person, 2 cars following, so we can move a lot of cars from one hub to another hub if there's, to meet the demand at that certain hub. We did this with the sensors that are already in the BMW i3, which is the car we use, but tweaking the software so they were capable of platooning. And for people who like not following the rules, was not completely according to the rules that we had autonomous cars on the road here in Eindhoven. Of course, it was a safe situation. The road was closed, nothing could happen, but not perfectly by the rules. But this is the first usage of autonomous driving we will see, in our opinion, in the city, is getting the car from storage, parking, whatever you call it, to where the consumer is, which gives the opportunity to redesign the city and have less parking space within the city and more living space within the city. Overview of what we do. We provide the whole package. So this is mainly made a sheet for cities around the world. We really want to expand outside the Netherlands and launch our service in other cities. And looking at that, one of the things that makes us different from a lot of other companies is employee engagement. When we have a new customer, a big company, or a new city, we really talk to the employees directly, have all the communication materials, we used to have kind of cafeteria meetings. Now we can do that, where all the employees came and we would present how you could use Ember and how it worked. Very much getting engagement. It's a bit harder now to do that. That's still our drive to really get people into the product. Now, some of the customers we have, we like to show names. The University of Eindhoven as well is one of our customers. We're very happy with it. We want to expand. Of course, the EU is a logical first step because of the common market. But we're even looking beyond the EU. What's very important, what we think is within very dense cities, you will have public transport and ride sharing like Uber as the main mode of transport, because there's very little space. So think of Paris, London, etc. In medium dense cities, basically the whole of the Netherlands does not have dense cities. So 2,000 to 4,000 people per square kilometer. This is a good solution. Lower densities, I think for now, car ownership, in the future, autonomous shared cars, which can get to you. This is one of the prizes we won, always nice to include it. Some of our highlights. Important one here is we only use electric cars, so we have spared tons of CO2 emission already. We use green electricity, electric cars. We never ever want to use fossil fuel cars. They're harder to maintain, more to break down. They're a pain in the ass, basically. Any questions will be in the chat and will be in the discussion later. But feel free to put questions in the chat, or next slide, last slide. Contact me if you want to know more about Ember. Thank you very much.
I'm very happy to announce our next speaker. He has many years of creating and launching successful innovations. And he just got started, because he also is has a very elaborate picture on how the future could look like, and he even started implementing it at Eindhoven Strijp S. So Kees Janon, he's an Innovator Hub developer at City Lab Eindhoven and a Chief Innovator Officer at Venture Spring. Kees, please tell us all about it.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to say something about my journey related to smart cities, explain some of the lessons that I learned, and also explain a little bit about the City Lab and the things that we are doing. City Lab, to begin with, that is it's an organization that is trying to find its form. Currently, it's a network organization. We're bringing together innovators from big companies. We're trying to establish different ways of engaging with citizens. We work mostly with the municipality of Eindhoven and with other non-commercial partners. That's what we're trying to do. My personal background is I used to work in the semiconductors division of Philips. And I think people have difficulty to imagine this, but there was a moment that internet technology actually didn't exist, and that even Philips built its own intranet. I was fortunate enough to start working in Philips after they plugged in the first, actually the final cables. And when I arrived at Philips, there were 2 intranet websites on the whole of the Philips network, and Philips was one of the first multinationals to engage with Cisco. So that was a really great period. Then after the semiconductors division, I moved to the Philips Notlab, in the Netherlands at least, quite a well-known name. The place where Philips made all its inventions, including the compact cassette, compact disc, all those technologies. And the thing that is currently in the Netherlands replacing Pinne, you see here, it's near field communication. It was a technology acquired by Philips before the year 2000. So in the semiconductors division, we were already talking about the concepts of doing these things. And in Philips Research, I built the very first Internet of Things prototype with this technology. We had an annual innovation event where we had people to actually invest the 20 bags of money they got into one of the 70 projects that Philips was highlighting in terms of innovation. Next slide, please. I was so captivated by that idea and that was the moment I still believed in all these startup buzzwords. So I started with a few other people. We made the Stripe Festival completely interactive with this technology. We're talking about 2010 now. This was a heat map from the Stripe Festival at that moment. The red hearts are where people just did something. So this was a dynamic overview, and the size of the heart says something about the popularity of those artworks there. Next slide, please. And besides the fact that we were totally in love with our own technology and we believed that this was going to make ourselves rich and famous, the whole purpose of it, of course, from a festival point of view, was that people were excited about using it. We placed, or the Stripe Festival together with us placed touchscreens with every artwork. And the touchscreens simply said what the artwork was about, but it also asked people per artwork to give their feedback in terms that they could actually type something, and they could also give a number of coins or hearts to an artwork. And what you saw is that not only for photography purposes, but this was actually a real sort of a real image from the festival, that people started engaging with each other to try to figure out what the artwork did and what they thought of it. So that was a social engagement. And the point I'm trying to make is that even with new technologies, there is no technology push versus market pull. There is a new technology, you do something with it, you try to make it impactful, and then you learn and you move on. And that's what we did. Next slide, please. I think with mobility, there's a similar issue. So it's really great to hear visions of where it should go. It's really great that to live in a city where Amber comes from, and Amber is doing these things, and to hear also that there are ideas about how biomimicry will move mobility forward. Yeah, can you click on it? And once more, and once more. From a user point of view, and from the City Lab point of view, ultimately, we believe that this all relates to how people are able to use mobility as a service. That's obvious. At the same time, it's not necessarily a given that people are involved in this development process. And you hear from Amber how that is the case, and biomimicry that are also testing it. So the people that are doing it are actually doing it. But that's not necessarily the case of the things that the government is doing, or that even the municipality of Eindhoven is engaged with. Next slide. And this is a picture that people may or may not recognize. This is the area around the station of the city of Eindhoven. All the white, yellowish buildings are new buildings that will be built in the next 15 years, and the idea is that something like 25,000 people will be living there in 15 years, or the numbers are so outrageous that I can't even remember them. But this illustrates that mobility as a service and all the smart technology that is related to this applies to current development plans of a municipality of Eindhoven, and obviously of a whole bunch of other cities. These 20, let's say that it deals with 25,000 people. These 25,000 people need to, assuming that Corona at the moment will evaporate, but they need to go to the shop on a daily basis. They need to go to work on a daily basis. Right now there are 0 people living in this area, and how do we get those people in and out of their homes? Or even in corona-compliant elevators up and down in the same building, but also in and outside of this area. Next slide, please. And then you're only looking at this from a mobility point of view. What we're trying to say with the City Lab is that at some moment, as people living in our cities, knowing that our municipality is engaged with these type of products, we want them to consider more things like energy, yeah, like the volumes that are being built there, people working there, yes and no, yeah. Yeah, sustainability, how do we deal with nature? What is the ratio of green and blue, trees and water? Yep. Mobility, obviously, yep. And this relates to a bunch of sustainability development goals. And when it relates to important projects like this, at some moment, as citizens looking at our local and provincial and national governments, we would like very much for these people to consider all these things in their planning. Why is this not a given? Then in the next slide, you'll see our perspective. The reason why I spoke about internet technology is that the whole digital process started with the emergence of company and with the emergence of internet technology. In Philips, it was clear that internet technology enabled digitalization of chips. Digitalization of chips enabled the growth of software. Software led to apps and all kinds of applications. Additional chips and centers were introduced. Then Internet of Everything or Internet of Things started to happen. That's what smart city basically is. It is the moment that internet technology connects to everything in our city. What we are saying in the City Lab in Eindhoven is working with the guy who actually found Cisco and convinced his manager that Philips should engage with Cisco. He has said digitalization, everybody thinks that it's a new thing. We're now at the 6th or 7th wave, depending on how you want to count. Every time it's the same process. There's a new infrastructure. Based on a new infrastructure, there are vertical applications. People start to learn about something and they want to express something. So in the internet, it was FTP, file transfer protocol, it was SMTP, a message transfer protocol. At some moment, somebody, and now it is smart energy, it's smart lighting, it's smart, it's mobility as a service. At some moment, somebody says, yeah, but now we want to do smart things with our environment, and we want to do smart sustainability, or we want to talk about smart leisure. Somebody will say, we shall not create yet another vertical. We can't go on creating new verticals. That is just a waste of money. We need to come up with a horizontal solution. Mobility as a service, smart mobility, however you want to call it, is one of those, in my opinion, currently one of those vertical drivers. When the municipality starts to work on such big projects like in the station, around the station in Eindhoven, you don't want them to look at these things as verticals. You want them to look at it from a horizontal point of view, from an integrated point of view. And why is this difficult? In Eindhoven, we're fortunate enough to have people who have retired from Philips, who have done this process a number of times. The municipality of Eindhoven has been a partner that we are working with closely. They have integrated this way of thinking. They have introduced in their own organization that they're following this framework. And that means that although in Philips and in business at large, we've been working with digitalization for at least over 25 years. In municipalities, this is relatively new. Digitalization, either from a vertical point of view, like smart lighting. There are municipalities that are considering selling their lamp posts because a civil servant sees a way to reduce his costs by selling them, and they will miss the opportunity that is actually the infrastructure with which 5G will become possible. So municipalities they don't have 25 years of experience with digitalization. The national government in the Netherlands, at the moment that digitalization becomes a clear directive for all municipalities, the national government has said, please, all 350 municipalities, take care of it by yourself. And that is not how you arrive at a horizontal in the Netherlands, let alone in Europe. If you think about that, it's even yeah, some might say completely ridiculous. I would never say that, especially not in public. But it's not the smartest thing to do. Next slide, please. Ultimately, like with the Strijd Festival, what you want is shiny, happy faces. If we can ensure that smart mobility goes in a direction that is compliant, looks like it mimics nature, if Amber can do the things that they do and make people happy, that is what we want. What is needed for that is that not only continue with smart mobility as a successful vertical thing, but to create awareness for the need for horizontal solutions, to contribute to horizontal solutions, and to integrate ordinary people who might not know about this, who can learn from simply working with this in the process, because ultimately what we want, this is a slide from Atos, the ICT company, it basically depicts a paradigm shift. So government now is the picture to the left, where we only have functional silos that are isolated from each other. It's already becoming clear even to the government that they should integrate those silos, and that it would be beneficial for citizens to at least not speak with different governments when they speak to the government. But in a development like KnopXL, you're looking at the picture to the right. It will be really strange for citizens who will live in that area to have 25 different apps for mobility as a service, leisure as a service, smart shopping, smart culture, their sports stuff. That will be either we allow that to happen, and maybe even all data goes to Facebook or Google, and we run all kinds of different risks. But at least for Europe, in an era of America first, it would not be a bad idea to think of how, especially in a city like Eindhoven, where we enjoy and where we think we are ahead of other people, not necessarily always the case. But it would be nice to actually figure out how to arrive at the uttermost right picture, because that is where a smart city really should come from. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. I am very happy to announce our next great speaker of today, which is Auke Hoekstra. He is researcher at the Technical University of Eindhoven, and his goal is to accelerate the use of sustainable energy. He's an expert when it comes to knowledge about electrical vehicles, and he also advises the Second Chamber and other governmental institutions about sustainability. So if you have any questions, ask them in the chat. So the stage is yours, Auke.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try something new today, which is not use PowerPoints, because I think we are being, we're suffering them enough lately. And I would try to, I would start saying a thought experiment. Imagine a city, large city, with no cars. Just no. When you think about it, a car is a very strange phenomenon. I mean, you train your children not to go more than 10 meters or something from home, because then, there's basically a very, very dangerous predator out there lurking to eat them, or at least crush them. Also, to get into a car, you become disconnected from the world around you, right? You're in the car. Now the other world is out there. You cannot really hear them. They think you are pretty annoying. You think they are pretty annoying because they're in your way. You cannot go fast because of them. And they think you're in the way and you're scary. So if you think about it, it's a kind of a strange situation. And I think this situation is going to drastically change. I have a background in internet technology, so I used to also build the first intranets in my company, and work on the computer center, where we sort of found out this incredible feeling of communicating with other people, then it was typed out on paper actually, and you couldn't say too much because somebody would come in. We had the night shift at the I said it, Rekencentrum, Calculatory Center Supercomputer. For those days, computer slower than I have in my pocket now. But if you said too much, they could sort of go back in time through the printed log and say, shouldn't you be working? What's the difference? I come back to it later. Because I think we're going to see drastic changes. And the first is something I really know a lot of, and that's electric vehicles. I think our normal vehicles are going to be electric, and that's not really a question anymore. I spent a lot of my evenings debunking people saying, yeah, but how about some way to give the combustion engine another lease on life? Sorry guys, it's over. Just LED lights, replacing incandescent lights. That's really a done deal. And if you think about it, the cities become nicer if the cars are electric. Yes, you have to watch out a little bit better because you can't hear them. But actually, I don't think that's a disadvantage. I think a city where it's considered good, or a place where it's considered good, that every time, every moment you hear big machines whizzing by, and you think, that's good, because then I know they're there, right? Then I know how to watch out for. The predators announce themselves constantly. That's nonsense. We should find better ways, just as looking out, to beware of the predators and forget about them as much as possible. Also, it's going to be much cheaper. I think the thought experiment is people often say in 2025, 2030, then maybe we will sell 30% electric cars. And I know this kind of thinking. I work a lot with the innovation science, and they always tell me this is normal thinking, but it never happens. Because try this thought experiment. In 2025, you're walking to a showroom. You have the ability to buy a beautiful car of, let's say, 25 or 30,000 euros or something. For some reason or another, you can buy this car, and you're going to a showroom and you want to pick a car. And there's two cars there, which are more or less identical. One of them is electric and has a big disadvantage, that is every 400 or 500 kilometers, you have to wait for, let's say, 15 minutes before you can drive further. But you're starting to wonder, how often do I drive more than 500 kilometers on a day? And you start to realize, actually, it's 1 in 2 months or something. So basically, once every 2 months, I have to spend 15 minutes. Maybe it's a very bad day, 30 minutes, because I have to do it twice. Well, that's not so bad. And then there's the other car. And you know the other car, it's sluggish. It doesn't accelerate that rapidly. It's really noisy. Your kids hate it because they think it's not cool anymore. And it's extremely expensive to own. And now imagine those cars have the same sticker price. I think in the Netherlands there will be very few people who actually choose the noisy, expensive one. So that is the first future. But more interestingly, and my sticky notes are going dark. More interestingly, the next step, I think we're going to share cars. I think it's pretty obvious, but I explain in the next step why it's going to happen, I think. But first, the advantages of sharing cars. Once we start, I mean, it is in a way, it's strange that we now think it's normal for everybody to have one or more 2,000 kilograms boxes standing around in front of their house, doing nothing for 23 hours a day, and just waiting for them to maybe take it mostly alone to whatever it is you want to do. I mean, it's incredibly wasteful. But also, if you look at it from a city perspective, it takes a lot of place, a lot of city space, right? I mean, you have to park all that stuff. Just imagine how spacious your cities would be if you didn't have to park cars anymore. You have lots of room to do nice things. Actually, most old cities were built with this idea in mind. Nobody had the idea that there should be 50 carriages or something in front of a pub. The old cities were not designed like this. So I think once you start sharing, cities become much more interesting space, much more spacious spaces. Of course, for me as an environmental interest, yeah, I'm a vegan. I try to limit flying. I haven't flown for 5 years now, so I think. I drive electric, although I think, yeah, that's still pretty posh. I have an energy positive house, so for me this is kind of I make it a sport to do this kind of thing. But if you think about it, you could save so much material if you shared a car with 10 or 20 people. If you evaporated 90% of resources needed for cars, that would be immense. But it doesn't stop there, because I really think that your platooning exercise is just step one. I'm thoroughly convinced, and we'll see in 5 or 10 years, I think, maybe 3, that self-driving cars are the future. And then sharing becomes a completely different proposition. Basically, you talked about valet service, all right, valet service. So cars that pick you up and put you where you need to be, basically taxis, let's face it. If every car automatically is a taxi, sharing becomes a completely different proposition. I mean, just imagine let's say there's in your neighborhood there's 150 cars, of which, let's say, 30 are in use and the rest are waiting for somebody to ask for their services. And you just take out your smartphone and you say, yeah, I want to go somewhere alone, you know my preferences. And 2 minutes later, a car, maybe 1 minute later, a car pulls up, you get in, it drives you to your destination while you keep chatting with whatever, or you keep doing whatever you're doing. You get out and you move on. That's a much more luxurious proposition than what we currently have. And it's much cheaper and makes the city much more livable. So for me, it's unimaginable that this won't happen once we have self-driving. But it gets better. It gets better. Because once we switch to shared electric cars, then basically you choose your car every different trip, right? Every time you say, I want to go somewhere, you have to choose your vehicle. Or somebody has to give you a vehicle. And it could be a different vehicle every time, right? So instead of now where you have to buy a car
All right, welcome back, everybody. Some technical issues here, but everything is solved apparently, so that's good. Auke and all the other three speakers, thanks for your talks. In a bit, we're going to the discussion, but first, before that, I want to ask the online people to come up with some questions, and also maybe you guys here live. Do you have some questions to any one of these? Yes, to Auke. Yes, all right, I'm coming to you.
The hugging part. I bet it's the hugging part.
I had a question. You were saying if we would all go to VR, that would solve a lot of problems. Also, our traveling needs, as also Carla van der Weijer is saying, that for ages, human beings have a traveling urge for like 1 hour and 10 minutes a day. But then I recently found out that my neighbor, who's actually on Minecraft or something like that, that his virtual character takes the same amount of energy as 40 people living in Ethiopia. So I was considering, if we all go VR, how are we going to deal with this energy issue?
Well, I'm not sure this is working. Yeah, this one's working. Yeah, I always wonder how they tricked the books this time. How they tricked it this time. Because I've done so much, I do debunking on Twitter a lot. And so much of these, renting a tape was less energy intensive, even if you had to drive with your car than watching on Netflix, etc., etc. I don't know how they did this for Ethiopia. I could imagine that they did electricity. And since most people in Ethiopia don't have electricity, that rapidly adds up, of course. But yeah, if you look at the energy use of gaming, you cannot travel by car very far on what you can. I would say you can drive 5 minutes or something for what you can game in what you use gaming in an hour. But for me, what's much more important is we're going to electrify everything in terms of energy. I really think that is already happening. And there is, long-term, more than enough energy. The solar, the sun gives us more than 1,000 times, I think. In 1 hour, you get more energy than what we currently use in a year. We can make that energy also renewable. We still have a lot to do, and I model that for a living. But still, in the end, I think that part is going to be CO2 free. So it will take 10, 20 years. So yeah, it's a temporary problem, and at least it's much better than traveling by car. But on the other hand, playing football in backyard takes less energy than playing. That's completely true. Although if you take a Game Boy or something, or a mobile phone, that on the receiving end doesn't use a lot of energy. On the server side, it still does. But so I would have to look at a specific example. But you use about 5 to 10 times less energy playing games than traveling cars. I know that for a fact. Traveling by car.
All right. Are there more questions here? Yeah?
Well, okay, so because he's still standing, but I have questions for everyone.
I'm still standing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you were talking about the decision of choosing for an electric car and one with fossil fuels, and that you said you made some points on why you would choose electric car in the future based on the car itself. But I think that we are already at a sort of point where financially it's sort of going into the direction of being financially more profitable to go electric. But isn't it maybe in the minds of a lot of people that there isn't the necessary infrastructure yet to go for electric? That they think, oh, and I have to install a charger at home, and where do I charge my car when I'm going on holiday? That sort of stuff. Would that be a big hurdle, you think?
Yes, I always say when I speak to members of parliament or whatever, put more money. Basically, your subsidies for buying the car, you can make them lower and lower and lower very fast now, and in 4 or 5 years it's not needed anymore. If you just take a small part of that and help it to improve infrastructure, that's much more powerful way to use your bucks right now. But I must say that we did a lot of surveys among EV users, although they were very hard to find a couple of years ago. And most of the experienced ones, they basically say, nah, not much of a problem. They had two categories. First I drove a Leaf. It has a range of about 120 kilometers. And then you're, very often worrying about where you can, basically every place you go, or many places you go, you want to be able to charge when you get there, you want to get back, or there were not many chargers around. And so then it was like it was bad. But we already saw that the Tesla drivers, they were not so worried. They thought that the 20 or so superchargers that they had available, it was pretty nice. And sometimes when they got home, they couldn't charge. So what? We charge tomorrow. So I think as the range of electric vehicles increases, this fear of not being able to charge lessens. It's much easier now to get a charge point at public locations. At home, it's also getting easier. It's still a kind of a hassle, because if you call your local electrician and say, "Hey, I want a couple of stopcontacten,
Plugs.
a couple of sockets," he says, "No problem." And if you say, "Oh, and I want a charger with it to go with it," it's like, what? But I already gave a couple of talks to the guys delivering the stuff to the electricians. And they say, in 4 or 5 years that's normal. So I think it's all temporary.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Do you maybe have any questions to Auke or any of the other speakers? Yes. Here we go.
I have a question to the first speaker. You mentioned specifically that you believe that a lot of intra-city traffic will also occur by air in the future. However, from a physics perspective, traveling the same distance by air is always going to cost more energy than staying on the ground where you don't have to fight gravity. How do you see air travel fitting in here?
If you look at the current air travel, you're right. But imagine you're going above the zone of weerstand, gravity. So you're really going to the air, the troposphere, where there is no or less gravity at all. And if you move there vertical, you're using less energy at the end. You can calculate that.
But that would work for long distance.
Yeah, for long distance only.
Going up 10 kilometers to travel.
No, I was talking about Australia and the Netherlands. Yes. So it's long distance only. The mid-long term, I think it's more or less the cars, maybe Hyperloop. I'm not in favor of the Hyperloop because it needs a lot of materials again. But there will be another way of autonomous driving in trucks driving or whatever. Electric, yes, for sure. But faster than we currently go. Yeah, but the international travel will be vertical rising up. And electric, eh? I'm a Tesla driver, by the way, so I have no problem at all with getting enough electricity.
All right, thank you. Yes, another question.
Yeah, I had another question. I'm not really sure how to formulate it, so it's about the car sharing, but also the VR, the fact that we are going to society where we are going much more online and getting things on demand. And very quickly, I look up a quote that I really love that I found when I was studying, that I think is explaining my worry about this kind of evolution. And worry is maybe a big word because I love innovation. I think it's great that we are having much more possibilities and technologies to live, to work, to use. But we are still humans, and I feel that there are some needs like transportation. We need a car to transport, and I think it's a bit simple to say a car is just transportation. It's also sometimes my house. It's when I live with my family, I have to have my car seat. When I'm meeting people in a meeting, it's not only seeing them, it's also the social aspect. And so the quote says, few people would say that they wish their romantic lives were more like computing, efficient, automated, inorganic, and lightning fast. Yet, technology is becoming increasingly implicated in the most intimate aspects of our lives and selves. And I think it's something we have to take into account when we develop new technology, to think about the fact that we are not a machine, we are humans with needs that are also emotional. And well, I think it's really important to take that into account when we create new technology.
I think there are two sides to your remarks. And first is, I think we're going to be smart about when to travel, when not. What Auke said, of course, we want to hug people, we want to touch people. So it's not that we are going to stay home indefinitely. I hope not. I hope this whole COVID situation goes away and then we can move about freely again. But it's also not smart for a 1 hour meeting to do 2 hours of commute. And we often did that. And I think we are going to do less of that. And if you're going to move less, then you're going to use this car, which you now use 1 hour a day, even less. So then that's good to go to a shared vehicle. And there's another aspect that I didn't cover, and I also didn't cover, indeed, the privacy. The car you own is an extension of your home. It's an extension of your living room. My car is very trashy, and I don't care because other people don't use it. So it's like that. I have kids, there's a lot of sand in it. It's terrible. But that's possible because it's not a shared car. If it was a shared vehicle, I need to treat it differently. I need to consider other people using it. So there will be some kind of trade-off. We were at Ember are thinking about personalizing the shared car, so making sure your music plays in it, maybe have some mood lighting, which you already configured in the app, and it transfers to the vehicle you take at that moment. But it will be less of your living room, that's true. So I think you have a good point there, and the other point for traveling, we'll still do that. I think we'll do it more efficiently. We think better about when to travel and when not to travel. We're not going to be hermits closed inside. I don't believe that either.
I have an additional question to that, because you mentioned that a car is an extension of your living room. I do think for some people, a car is an extension of their personality. They take great pride in their car. Some Tesla drivers might do. And to them, it's a reflection of their personality, and it's also something they're very fond of. And you want to take it away from them. How are you going to do that?
I'm not going to take it away. We're not aggressive about car sharing. We start with the people who do not want to own a car. Our first group of people were people who were offered a lease car, but were living in the center of Amsterdam, in the city of Amsterdam, couldn't get a parking permit, didn't want a lease car because they couldn't use it. They wanted to go to their place of work by bike or by public transport. So I don't think there will be total end of car ownership. There will be people who take pride in a car. And as with many markets, you will see the middle. If you're now a car manufacturer, you will see the middle disappear. So if you build Opels, I would be worried. I think the high end, the Mercedes and the BMWs will continue to exist because they're an expression of your personality, and people will like to own them and say, I'm a successful person, I have this expensive BMW. So there will be a change, and what you say, it won't go away, but people express themselves in many ways, in their clothing, in their cars, in the gadgets they own, in the way they speak. And for some people, a car will be important, and I'm not going to take it away. Maybe governments will, I hope not, because I do like freedom. So I think it will stay as an expression of personality for some people.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for your answer. Oh, there's one more question.
I just wanted to say also
But people often exaggerate, I think, how important things we have now will be in the future, because we have them now, so they must be important. An example, I think, is the sound of cars. A lot of people thought in the beginning that a car that doesn't do brum brum, that's not a real car, so nobody's going to buy it. And of course, a lot of car salesmen already said to me, well, if we make a car less noisy, it actually sells better. So I'm not completely sure that goes for everybody. And now we really, I hardly ever hear people complaining about Teslas being so silent. Yeah, sometimes people who don't like electric cars in general say blind people are going to be run over by electric vehicles, blah, blah, blah. But there's very few people actually who are very, who really want that. And I think, I tried to explain car sharing once to a group of preschoolers, and the whole concept of sharing a car, they find it kind of hard to understand. And I said, basically, it's Spotify your car. And when it was like, oh, yeah, of course. I mean, who wants to own CDs anymore? I mean, you must be so old to want that kind of thing. And in my youth, going to a record store and having a new Pink Floyd or whatever, it was part of your personality. Right now, you're just old.
I do agree, but to go to the spot, people do buy vinyl records. So that's why I think people will buy special cars. Some people will. Like they now do buy vinyl records, not to listen to that music because they have Spotify.
Yeah.
But
So 5% of the people will still do that.
yes,
Good fun with that.
yeah.
But I have a question to that. If because all of your vision is to actually to have less cars, just a few people who will have it as a hobby, but not really to use it as a mobility. This transition, should that be a role the government should take on, or is it something we leave to the market?
Both. I think governments have a very big role, and the two of you have more to say about that, in city planning. And if you plan a city for cars, people will buy cars. If you look at the US and their suburbs, which are only livable when you own a car, then people will have cars, because you cannot live there without one. If you build cities for people with less space for cars, and like you said, the shared spaces, then people don't want to own cars because they're a nuisance. So that's the role of governments, not to say you cannot own a car, it's forbidden, that won't work, but change your city.
But I'm actually more bullish on that. Of course, you shouldn't be, because then it would be the enemy to people who were interested in car sharing, but not far enough along the road to really say yes. But I think, I mean, if you look at the Netherlands, there was a time in Amsterdam, for example, we wanted to follow this bright and beautiful example of car-friendly cities in America, our savior, who gave us freedom. We wanted to have, make the canals into beautiful, broad promenades, and then America will be just like Los Angeles. Could it be more beautiful? And right now, nobody. I mean, in Netherlands at least, I would say 1 in every 1,000 people think that's a good idea. So I think what we're seeing is that people are now aware that making a car-centric city is an option, is a choice, is not automatic. And everybody I speak from public planning, they basically don't like cars, and they would be thrilled to be able to be more in that discussion and say, hey, wait, can we say something before you build this neighborhood? Could you make it in such a way that it's really, really difficult to have your own parking space? We would love that. And
we speak to different people in public planning, because the people I speak to, the civil servants, are very afraid of the public who's saying, oh, I don't like it if I cannot park my car in front of my house. Or if you build a new apartment building there, where will those people park? Not in front of my house, I hope. That's scary. So if you build an apartment building, build parking with it. And they're still way too afraid to put their foot down and say, no, we're going to build houses and we're not going to build parking here. I think that they're not daring to take this step and not Buddhist enough.
But I think that's true. I think they want to take this step, but are afraid to do so because they know that they will get a lot of pushback. On the other hand, once they do it, there's a lot of experiments with this, right? With streets that were made car-free, and it's always the same pattern. First, a lot of people think, oh, could be a nice idea. It's a small group of people. They, for some reason nobody understands, actually get their way. And hey, the city is now car-free. Everybody sort of freaks out. My business is not going to sell anymore. Oh, it's horrible to live here. Oh. But yeah, it takes a couple of years to reverse a decision like that. Much or a little bit more actually, and most people see that their housing prices actually go up a little bit. So what I've seen is basically every time it's the same. There's very few streets who actually go back after they take the step, but in the first, people are very afraid to push back. Yeah.
Well, how are you going to change that? Because I completely agree with your story. In your car,
too much.
Yeah, then you're in your car, you're in your own cocoon. You see a nice restaurant, but before you can make a decision if you want to eat there, you're past it. If you walk past a nice restaurant and you see it, you think, hey, I go in here.
Yeah.
So for business, it's good. As I said before this, I gave you the idea about Disneyland, which is completely planned. It's completely commercial. They want to make a lot of money. That's their only goal. There are no cars in Disneyland for some reason.
No, I can imagine. I went there. It would really suck if you had to navigate all the streets and all the cars all the time.
Yes, but it's a commercial company saying we want to make money, and they're not thinking, oh, let's bring people in with their cars. So basically, the whole idea that cars are good for business.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just where that's
but I was just wondering, Stripe S, right? You had a problem there. But basically, you had too much industrial, or you had a lot of nice, well, by now, nice, interesting, retro industrial buildings, right? Which was sort of getting interesting again, although, there were not buildings that were not made to live in, but for some people, they find those buildings interesting, but you didn't have enough parking spaces, basically, right?
Yeah, so I lived with my startup at Cypress. I was not involved in organizing it. What I know is that was indeed the case. They arrived at solutions averaging the number of parking spaces per inhabitants.
Okay.
And they looked for solutions that structurally required less cars to be there, like Amber has parking places there, etc., etc. And there was a whole integrated mobility plan. But one of the questions, I think, from my perspective, is one of the issues here is changing the system. So that relates to civil servants at which level and politicians at which level. From a mobility point of view, you're talking to different people, but somewhere with the people that you both talk to, something good will happen. What I'm also interested in is the smart side of the mobility. I used to work in the Dutch army also for a while. We now have a new flyer, not spaceship, aircraft. But the aircraft is basically a smart mobility platform in the hands of the US Army. I've also heard other people say if we have like X percent, 40% of all cars driving around electrically, photographing and videoing everything that is in the public domain, then whoever gets that data knows everything that's happening in the world, basically. Another problem could be solved with a car that you step in and the car says, I will drive you for free to Amsterdam, but then you have to eat there, and I will bring you there. And so once civil servants grasp how to do this from a car point of view, and hopefully with addressing biomimicry, etc. Another question becomes, so what happens to the data? What happens to the intelligence? Who owns the data? Where does the intelligence go? Can the CIA read this, or is Huawei involved, and will it go to China? And what does that mean in a time frame of America first?
I think even worse. Basically, all those data-hungry platforms, they found a business model to monetize our attention. So I think they're going to.
Yeah, if you don't have to drive in a car, that's a huge advertising space.
Exactly. So I'm afraid that at the moment we're building a world that basically makes it, drives us to being basically. It's almost like the Matrix in a way.
Well, there's
batteries with the eyeballs that are sold.
I believe it's in Wally. There's a scene in Wally where you have all these kids sitting on sort of scooters, and they're all sitting, and every scooter has a screen, and all the kids are big, fat, and ugly, and they only look at the screen, all of them.
Yeah.
And
now imagine the screen only shows the dumbest commercials that have the highest added value, and that's the way you get old.
Yeah, that's the world that you both are creating. You're basically you're supplying us to all those platform creators with the electrical car.
Yeah. So I'm a really. I'm not sure that's the topic.
Are you to Facebook?
No, not yet. We are very privacy aware, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course, some of our clients are big banks, etc. So we had this idea, if you could see people from a big company and a big bank and a big accountant all going to one spot, then you know there will be a takeover. So this is kind of
better. If you can listen in during the trip, it's even better.
Yes, but our clients don't want that.
Oh.
And there are good laws in the EU, and we're a young company. So we did privacy by design. We really did it because we started designing when the privacy laws became in effect. So it's actually a big thing for us. And then I see what you're saying. So if people are not deciding for themselves where to go, but have their mobility decide for them, then we get in big trouble. But I do think there's also your own responsibility to know that there's also your responsibility not to play games all day, but go out in the backyard to play football. It's also better for your health and energy.
So one thing, couldn't you become a sort of a dating service?
Crash the cars.
No. Crash the people in the cars. So
you can mine later, but then you need to share the ride and not share the vehicle. Make sure that the right people are in
still have a contact with Facebook, for example. Dreaded Facebook, and you forget about privacy for a moment because you ask people, do you think it's okay to give away all your privacy? And they say yes, which is quite common right now. So you're set, and then. You're going to find an algorithm of the kind of people you want to sit next to, so you can predict who you want to be in the car with. And every time you take an amber car, there is a chance that you have to share with someone else, which of course drives your cost down.
You're just looking for free hugs.
That it's someone you would like to meet.
You're just looking for free hugs.
There's something we have dreamt about, and you could do that. And it could be either dating, or you have a startup and you end up next to a VC. Could also be very beneficial. So you could do some kind of.
I have another question. So you guys will fix the civil servants and the mobility thing. I will ask the tricky questions about the data and the all that stuff. At what level do you think that biomimicry principles and let's say the return to nature, where will that come from? And who are you guys talking to make that part of the solution?
If you look to nature, big distances are rare to be used. So they use it for a specific reason. So the goose fly to Africa to have their eggs, and they come back and they travel 4,000 kilometers, but they use what they have. We don't have cars, guys, sorry, but I think cars is a man's thing or something. And mobility is about going from A to B as fast as possible, because you don't want to lose time, and as easy as possible. So it doesn't mean that it takes a lot of effort to go there, and less money will be preferred. And we work with a lot of younger people, and younger people don't care about cars, only cars. They just want to go from A to B in the time that they have. And I think that is exactly what nature does. If you look to a deer, it doesn't think about moving to a forest far away. It is looking for possibilities and for food. And as long as we create cities that deliver the needs that we have, that is a safe place to be, where our friends can be living around us, and they don't have to fight for housing, but it is available.
But then we're back to the problem of the city planning.
That's where it starts. And then VR can take you wherever you want in the world.
I don't
and
believe
it will
that
be
at
seldom used that you move from big distances. And that's where we have to go to. We should stop with traveling. We should stop with going out for the whole world. It's not good for our environment. Use what you have local, and create a local atmosphere that is much better than currently is.
Yeah, so sorry to interrupt, but we have a question from chat that really is related to this. So Nico asks, there's a lot of buzz surrounding smart cities, a lot of talk about sensors that can, for example, measure air pollution and thus reroute vehicles through the city. Very smart, but how about planting way more trees? That can help clean the air. How about dumb cities?
Yeah. Smart and dumb cities, that's a play on words. It's not so relevant. What we see in Eindhoven, for example, that the air pollution initiative was a bottom-up initiative from citizens. And they started to look at the air quality, and they made that available in the city. That's even being expanded regionally and will also include noise pollution. So other forms of pollution are being introduced there, but that's driven by people. There's no private companies. Well, of course, the suppliers are involved, but the initiative is from citizens, private initiative. Planting the trees from a municipal point of view, that's increasingly an important thing, also in Eindhoven. In Eindhoven, the question relates to how many trees and green lungs and what do we do with the water. We have quite a bit of water in Eindhoven. And there are also all kinds of smart sensor initiatives taking place there. Those two things are not connected because the one is a civilian initiative and the other one is a municipal initiative. And it would be nice to connect those things. And that is not necessarily happening. So one of the problems is that in municipalities there are a lot of silos, and then sustainability is some sort of fake thing that doesn't relate to anything usually because it's important but nobody knows where to do it, and etc. And then you have these civilian initiatives that have a very clear role, and they really want it for themselves, for their kids. And so it's not about smart and dumb, it's about the way that our system is organized currently makes it extremely difficult to operate as a deer and simply run into these people and find the connections. So it's not, the problem isn't smart and dumb, the problem is how the hell do we get these people, we pay for the civil servants, how do we get them to do what we want to do anyway? And for some reason, that is a problem.
Yeah, and it starts with reorganizing city planning. I think that's you also are calling this smart cities, but it is about doing things different. And as long as we talk about infrastructure and about public transportation, we're still going the wrong way because we're still using what we have. There are a lot of new possibilities, a lot of new technologies that we need to embrace and take and bring it into the cities. Move all the offices out of the center, create living spaces. Move the cars out of the city center because you don't need it. You have the last mile possibilities that is much more fun also to drive. And if you take away all the public transportation, all the cars, take away the infrastructure because you don't need it. Create green areas, create areas with water again, and the environment will be much better. Currently, the ppm in cities is 400, above 400. That's unhealthy. Let's create a healthy city center again, like it is in the forest, like it is where you have your place where you go to the water and drink. Create a healthy environment in cities again, and then we look at mobility solutions because we still will travel.
I partly disagree because with moving out offices, what we see with now very specific areas for specific functions. So we have industrial areas, we have office areas, we have shopping areas, we have living areas, and that creates mobility because we live in a living area, we need to move to a shopping area to do our shopping. So if you integrate more in a smart city and have offices and shopping, heavy industry is a bit of a problem, but a lot of functions more closely together, we have less need for mobility. And you can think of also smart offices. So now we all go to the same office with the same colleagues, which from our company, which is a certain occasion. You could also have a shared office, which you already have. And so you see all the people, you have the facilities there which are for an office, and you don't have crying children there, which helps you concentrate. But it's in your city, so you have less mobility. You make better use of space. You can have one building with a few office floors, a few living floors, instead of spreading out and then being more mobile. Using less space for these functions makes more space for the trees, which we definitely need.
All right, great. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have to go to the last question because we're running out of time. So we have one last question from the audience.
Yeah, final question to all of you. Actually, a remark to the personalized car. I think with the shared car, you can actually choose in the future which color you want it to be. You can instantly change it. Also the sound, maybe you want it to sound like a nightingale or a V12 for nostalgic reasons. Or I think that's the way you can actually deal with that. But then within, I heard you saying also about the Hyperloop, and then Auke about the, let's get rid of the rigidity of the lines and where to drive. I think one of the critics about the Hyperloop is that it's a rigid system. So how do you see within technology how we can go to this, maybe looking at nature, there's no highway, so maybe some ants tracks, but how can we, at the other side of Central Station Amsterdam, there's this anarchy in traffic with pedestrians and cyclists or whatever. Can we do that technology-wise? I mean, if you see that an autonomous car cannot drive when there's pedestrians or whatever, can we go to this kind of anarchy within the technology and how to actually can we have a playground here in Eindhoven to do that or something?
I think that would be great, actually. And I think if you look at nature, actually, nature is pretty anarchistic in that sense. I mean, everything is happening at the same time. I often think that the way we are organized right now with those rigid structures is basically because if you want to do things in an industrialized way, and we learned at a certain moment that you can get very wealthy and very efficient if you do things in a sort of a simplified industrial step-by-step way, then these kind of structures are simply the simplest. So it's the first, actually, to have a space where everybody sort of mingles and everything happens at the same time. It's actually much more complex to manage than if you say, you've got this stretch, hey, you've got this stretch, don't move out of it. You've got this is very simple. But everybody understands, of course, it's also very suboptimal. It's a very, very, very strained way to do it, to simplify things. I think with the new internet technology, we can come closer to, let's say, more organic ways of interacting with each other. We don't need these simplifications anymore. Basically mimicry it's pretty complex, but I think we can do that much more easily with internet technology. So I also find that people who have a background in internet technology would tend to agree with you, and people who have a background in either energy systems or mobility systems think, what? This is strange. But yeah, so yeah, I think that is the future. Basically, the way we humans, I mean, let's face it, we have existed in our current form, I would say, for millions of years. And just in the last 200 years or something, we have this idea of very, the way we now live together, it's very young, basically. I think what we share, still have in our DNA, is this sort of image of the savannah or whatever, that still feels pretty good. And I think with internet technology, with new ways to form mobility, we can get a little bit closer to that sort of, feel nice.
Yeah, let's technology help us to be natural again, because we don't like structure in itself. You know, the nature is not structured. There is a structure in it, don't misunderstand me, there is. but the structure is not visible. If we can use technology again to give us that structure that we still need, I think the cities will be much better to live in, and that is where it's all about.
Yeah, and I now completely disagree. Technology will be the future, and we will finally have the holodeck that we have been waiting for 13 years. It's going to come. I don't believe it. I simply don't believe it. I think as humans, we have this nasty thing called culture. Or systems, but basically that means the society that is organized in a certain way and that will not change overnight. So I think Amber is great. I hope the business will flourish. I think Bioamerica is great. I hope we will sell a lot of services. Knowledge institutes like the TU are great and they can make actual predictions, but unless we succeed in reorganizing the system that we have, unless we succeed in getting municipalities to do the combination of their sustainability programs with civilian initiatives like in areas in Eindhoven who deal with the air quality, if we convince the Dutch government not to make sure that every city of the 350 that we have in the Netherlands does a smart city on their own, which is completely ridiculous, if we can't get these people that we pay for, if we can't get them to do something more smart, and for example, learn from Philips, who has done this over like 6-7 times over 25 years, then I don't see this becoming successful at all. Just to disagree.
Yeah, but now you're talking about government. I think culture can be a problem, but see how fast the car was adapted, see how fast the smartphone is adapted, see how fast we adapt now and working from home and doing these things digital. We are very flexible beings. The government usually is a bit less flexible, so they need a bit of support and guidance. But I'm more positive than you in that we will be able to manage it. And the whole idea that cities are for people and not for cars has taken hold. We moved away from the American vision and then the car as the primary thing you build a city around. So. And it takes time, especially with cities, because you build a building for 50 to 100 years, so they don't change overnight.
There's one thing I would love to add, if I may. There's the final thing, because I make models actually that, basically address it, because you talk about silos, right? And actually silos are the simplest way to analyze problems. You just chop it up in pieces, and you analyze the pieces separate from each other. You understand what I mean, right?
Logically, yes.
Yeah, logically, yes. And what we saw is that actually designing a better area, let's just start with that is better for citizens. Citizens think like that. Areas are seen like that, but civil servants, they only look at one part of the area. So one thing we do with our models, agent-based models, area-based models, is we basically make a copy of a certain area in the computer where everything lives. We don't structure everything first. We basically make sure that everybody can sort of live their lives, and we try to analyze it all at the same time.
And for how many municipalities do you do that?
We do that just for small neighborhoods, one responsibility.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's my point.
So we try to do it multi-level. But what I'm just trying to say is one reason you're not seeing the movement that's logical and that you want is, I think, because we cannot model and understand it in a new way. We're going to change.
I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying. I think you're right from your point of view. From what I know from the municipality of Eindhoven is that thanks to big data, there was at least one civil servant who got a number of these silos together to do gebiedsgericht werken.
Yeah,
so they started from the area, but it was the first time in I'll dramatically exaggerate. It was the first time in history of the municipality of Eindhoven that there was one civil servant who actually succeeded in getting a number of these people together to look at the area and not look at only through their eyes.
Exactly. So that is really necessary and what we're seeing. And I also give my microphone to you.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you guys, but we are running out of time, unfortunately. We would have loved to go with this discussion, but we're out of time. So, yes, I want to give the word to Sandra for final words.
Well, as we noticed, there's a lot to discuss about. So this webinar was just a start to understand mobility and transportation networks in smart cities. And we need all your help. So if you have any questions, any ideas of anything, please do email us. You just can reply on the email you got from us to see this webinar. And now I just leaves us to thank you all. I would like to thank you personally. Very un-corona-like. Thank you very much for your great ideas and insights. Thank you for your investigation. Once again. And of course, the co-host. Thank you very much. And also big thanks to Innovation Origins for all the supporting it and making this possible.
Yeah, and we hope to see you next time. I apologize for the slight technical difficulties we experienced, probably because of Corona. I don't think that it's probably not a good excuse, but maybe let's assume that the Wi-Fi also is a bit weak. Anyway, so next time, everybody still online, thank you for your patience as well. And we'll surely hope to see you next time. The next event we will be dealing with, it has to do with agri-food, so who's feeding smart cities, and we will send out a notice on that as well, when it will happen.
It will be around Christmas.
Exactly. Food is always around Christmas. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.